So our science lesson is based on the topic of hereditary and inheritance. We are going to be working with pollination. Pollination is the process by which pollen is transferred in the reproduction of plants, therefore enabling sexual reproduction to take place.
Science standard that we're working with today is 1 LS3A, and it's to use information from observations to support the explanation that different individual plants and animals of the same type have similarities and differences.
We are using
Our complex question for this experiment is, what is the best way to pollinate a new type of plant?
And for this experiment, we are using soil and 4 different types of seeds, which are pumpkin, peas, sunflowers, and another type of flower called the larkspur.
The inquiry that I did specifically was, does the placement of the seeds affect how a plant pollinates? So what I did is I had a cup full of soil and I placed 2 pea seeds and 2 sunflower seeds. The pea seeds are at the bottom and the sunflowers are at the top. So we are going to watch it grow over time to see if the placement of the seed will affect the pollination whatsoever. From the evidence that I have researched, because we cannot see it right now, it does not seem to have an effect because pollination occurs after the fact.
And my inquiry was, does the amount of seeds affect how it pollinates? And what I did was I did 5 pea plants in mine and then 2 pumpkin seeds. So we'll see which one germinates first. And then my claim was, if there are more seeds, the better the plants will pollinate. But from evidence from research that the viable seeds, which are the good seeds that are not hollow and are not so old, that germination rates are poor. And it doesn't matter on the number of seeds, it is the quality of them that matters.
And mine was, if you plant more than 2 types of seeds, will one be dominant over the others? And when I planted mine, I used soil, and I used the pumpkin seed and the sunflower seed and put them together in this cup. And I found from my evidence that it does affect. One will be dominant over the other, grow at different rates, and the roots will tangle, and they both may or may not die depending on the plant that you use. The results depend on if the plant is a male or a female. So our Our topic today, starting off well, is inheritance of traits and heredity. Correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll do that.
Okay, so our standard.
So our topic for our teaching lesson was heredity and inheritance of traits. We focused on the pollination of plants during our inquiry and our claim and evidence initially.
So in the class, one of the groups, their inquiry was, how will the number of seeds affect the pollination? And their claim was, more seeds will lead to more pollination. And their prediction was, we think that the more seeds will lead to more plants, which will cause more pollination. So they put 1 seed in 1 cup and 4 seeds of the same seeds in another cup. The second group, their inquiry will mixing the plant seeds create a better / new pollinated plant? And their claim was, by crossing or mixing sunflower seed with a larkspur seeds, a new and more pollinated plant will grow. And they thought that they could create a plant called sunlark. So that was creative for them. And then the third group their inquiry was, does the placement of the seeds affect the seed's growth? Do the deeper buried seeds grow flowers better than the ones placed on the topsoil? So they drew pictures also. And this one, their seed was buried, and then this seed it was towards the surface. So they thought that the seeds would be falling on the surface of the soil, and they thought that it wouldn't grow. And then their claim was the seeds that are deep in the soil will have a pollination rate, like a greater one than the seeds that are higher in the soil. And the last group, their inquiry was, how does the amount of seeds affect pollination? And their claim was the more seeds, the greater the pollination. So they also did 1 seed in one cup and 4 seeds in another cup.
The following week, when we were discussing book club, it was interesting to see the ideas that related back to the inquiry the week before. The first group said that plants that are cross-pollinating rely on insects, birds, wind, and water. In order for the seeds to be produced, pollen from the anther must reach the stigma. So that was interesting because we did not discuss that during our lesson. The next group said that they found a book that discussed how seeds travel, how pollination occurs, and how traits are inherited. So that would have been great for our lesson as well. The third group said that plants use a wide range of agents to carry their pollen. Wind, water, insects, birds, and mammals. Some plants only have the male or female parts, which was a very interesting concept that most groups didn't think about. And the last group said that pollen travels from one flower to another and joins with the part of the new flower to make a seed. So again, it all related back to our initial inquiry, which was really interesting.
But after going into our class, we realized that although it makes sense to us after doing the research, the class was confused. So going into the Baldwin Center, we decided we had to change our experiment so that it would make sense to the kids. So we made a worksheet so that it would be easier for the kids to understand. On the worksheet, the first question was what makes these plants' seeds similar to each other, and most students all responded that they are all going to grow. And then for number 2, what is different about the plant seeds that you chose to plant? And these answers were a little bit different. For this student, it says they are all different colors and sizes. And then for number 3, they had to draw what they thought the plant would look like once it grew. This student thought that this plant seeds were going to be tangled, but they would still grow 3 seeds, but they would kind of create one plant. For this student, what was different about the plant seeds was that they're different colors and different sizes. This student had 1 stem, but had 3 of the seeds that he had put inside. And what is funny is the pumpkin is actually carved, so that just shows a little bit of the student's thinking in that process. This student said that the difference was that the plant and the pea are smaller, and the color, and it is also longer to grow. This student made 1 stem but created its own new plant, having the seeds be on the petals and the pumpkin be in the middle. This student said that it was one is flat and another is fat and one is circular. So he was talking about the different plants and how they're different. This student actually noticed that the pumpkin would become too large for the cup and would break the cup, but would still grow, and the sunflower would grow on top. But I liked that he at least understood the size and the scale of the plants. And the last student just said that the seeds would get tangled together and that they would not grow at all.
So we learned a lot from doing our teaching lesson. We learned that, especially at the Baldwin Center, students all have a unique idea, which was very interesting. No student came up with the same scenario, really. We also learned that every experiment is going to be a little bit different depending on your audience. We had to kind of change and adapt ours when we were going into the Baldwin Center to make sure that the students would understand. We also learned that the more you practice and the more you change can also help a lesson, because the more you discuss how it can be changed will probably make it better.
And if we could do this lesson over again, we'd base it more on hereditary and base it more on people, so that the students could actually see the traits and that kind of thing instead of just a plant, because plants do take a long time to grow, so we'd have to start the experiment early in the year if we were going to use plants. So people would have been easier for them to understand.